Hello and welcome. My name is Valdis from Dicker Data, and joining me on the couch today are three experts who are here to talk about video data. All the interesting topics, problems, issues, solutions, and primarily the storage of video data and where it is going in the market today. So let's start with an introduction from left to right.
Thanks, Valdis, and thank you for having me today. My name is Daniel Corney. I'm a field CTO or field technologist. I work for Dell. I focus in what we call industry's edge and computer vision, which is essentially, in terms of video data, we're looking at how it's recorded, how it's managed, and how it's used across different industries, use cases, and the dynamic level of solutioning that now needs to occur in the industry. So over to you.
Thank you. Joshua Surdzeff, Solution Engineer for Milestone Systems. If you don't know what Milestone Systems is, it is a VMS platform continually for video management, but not only that, we start working into computer vision and data.
Shane Moresby, Product Vendor Manager for Milestone with Dicker Access and Surveillance for Milestone.
Okay, I know we've had quite a few conversations before the filming of this that we've delved into a lot of the problems that we're currently seeing in the industry and how it's changing and where it will be going. We're currently seeing that it's a little bit stuck in the past. Dan, do you want to talk to that?
Yeah, I mean, look, in Dell we talk about digital transformation. Now, it occurs to me that over the last 20, 25 years in this particular side of the market, that we've actually seen that digital transformation occur as we've moved from analog or BNC cable cameras through to IP connected IP cameras. So there's been a level of change, but we're still seeing a range of old analog cameras because they can be very difficult to reach places, IP cameras, but also what IP and networking means, because if you look at the term CCTV, it's closed circuit television. Now, the original networks used to be closed, so all of that data remained inherent and protected as an offline system. With the move into IP, you've got an open level technology, an internet protocol technology. So while it's possible to air gap those networks, it's also a question of how now that data can be taken and used. Because personally, Dell's position on things like smart cities or smart connected futures, we do see that video technologies and video management systems, as opposed to CCTV like Milestone, are actually, they're foundational to a smart connected future. But in that very same paradigm, if you can't connect it, how can you take any action or insight from that data? So these systems are becoming more and more online, and what that sort of portrays in terms of a skill shortage or a skills gap versus the way that things used to are traditionally done, is that you're now seeing a requirement for IT skills, not only around the infrastructure, but also around how that network or that solution is cyber secured, as well as physically secured. So what we're really seeing is the meshing of traditional physical security with cyber security with IT, and other analytical technologies for the advantage of the client and the use case. And that can be very, very different depending on the type of client, the terms of governance that they're under, what privacy needs to be adhered to throughout the solution, and ultimately, how they secure it all from top to bottom.
Yeah, and I'm guessing you've probably seen that being at the coalface of these conversations.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head when you talk about the transition in the IT space. And surveillance for us has always been broken into two worlds, being analog or digital. And very much the analog world's left behind and done and dusted. And that transition now into a digital space is no longer about surveillance, but it's more about data and what that data can be used for and how that adds a value to the business. And we have customers now that are looking for transition points and understanding that data and that IT space much better and how they can utilise those analytics to support their end customers.
Yeah. And I'm guessing you're talking about data, but the sheer volume of data that we're getting out of these cameras now, say 10 years ago, you were happy to get a crappy grainy picture, right? Now we're getting 4K, 8K, the amount of data that will throw at a storage device is insane.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that's one of the big things that we look at now. And quite often it's not the price point of the camera or the price point of the server or the server as such, it's the archive. So the archive storage is a big factor now that comes into play when we're looking at solution selling.
Yeah, I think we were having that conversation earlier about the amount of data and the long-term storage requirements.
Yeah, we've sort of seen a fashionable trend of 31 days or 30 days as your standard month for a lot of industries, and as industries have grown with computer vision or CCTV in its own, we've gone from 31 days to 60 days, and then other industries have gone all the way up to 120 days plus. So we talk about 4K cameras and storing 4K cameras. It's an immense amount of data that we've got to start storing for longer than we've ever had to before. Yeah. So it's a very interesting trend that we're seeing coming out.
And this is where we can go back to the Dell offering. Because we now have this extended storage requirement, we can't rely on traditional, say, small NAS boxes, independent storage.
Well, let's talk about that for a second, because and what you're talking about in the different camera resolutions, you've got to look at really what we're talking about is change, because every customer is going to be different, but they're going to have that range of traditional analog cameras that are connected to encoders that are actually taking a standard def image from the analog camera, re-encoding it to IP, and then sending it to the network video recorder, right? But what happens, because eventually that camera will fail. Now someone's going to be, needs to be put on a scissor lift to a hard to reach location to replace it, but what do they replace it with? Is it going to be another HD camera? Is it going to be a 4K camera? What's the use case there? What is the advantage? I mean, there is a lot of opportunity in looking at that change to say, what do I want to do with that image view for that location and that situation for the future, and what camera do I need to put in place? Now, once that camera is in place, you've then got to look at the change in the data flow, because the data stream will have changed. So that one camera at that location under standard def is probably generating, less than half a meg, for example. But if we've then moved from half a meg through to per second, through to basic HD at about 2 meg, through to 4K or 8K, that bandwidth change, first of all you've got the consideration of the network, but then you've got the consideration at scale with all the other cameras that you've just changed to that network about what that's going to do with the NVR at the back end. Now, if it's not a mission critical scenario, I mean, if we're talking about a retail corner store where, look, let's face it, if the impact of the video is not there, look, it's not ideal, but it doesn't mean that they've got to stop trading, yeah? So, a traditional NVR could be perfectly fine for that, but you still got to understand that, is that NVR going to be capable of receiving that new increased bandwidth? And is it going to be capable of delivering the total retention time? Because in some of the wide and varied solutions I've seen customers actually sacrifice frame rate to be able to deal with the amount of storage that they've got and reduce the bandwidth. So, there are some wonderful things that could be done in this technology, but at what point are you prepared to sacrifice the integrity of your solution just to keep going with what you've got? Now, the traditional NVR model is somewhat fixed, because you can only use what storage is on board the server. You can only drive that server as far as the manufacturer will support it in terms of what they would rate the bandwidth on, the incoming bandwidth or the outgoing bandwidth to the recorder. So at that point that you exceed the bandwidth, you're either going to be dropping video frames. That may or may not be a bad thing. You then have to, somebody from a security integrator will then need to rebalance, reconfigure the system to actually allow for a lower frame rate. And you've got some rework, but you've also got the potential for more video loss.
And I think as you just mentioned, the security integrator has to come in here. And as soon as we start talking bandwidth and networking, it's more than just the camera and the storage. It's
solution selling. Yeah. So, and that's what I think is unique about the position that we have with Dicker Access and Surveillance and the Dicker IT business. And our customers are looking for a way to gain that knowledge and to utilise that knowledge to reach their customer and open more opportunities. And that's where I think we truly are unique compared to other distributors, whereby we can open those doors and we can reach out to people like the Dell team on board and get that skill set and knowledge and pass that through to our system integrators.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of topics that you've discussed that people probably don't even consider when they're thinking video and security cameras and stuff like that?
Yeah, it's an education process. And something we talked about offline is the fact that surveillance in the word isn't really what we're selling anymore. We are selling the business solution. We are selling the value add to that end customer. And quite often that comes into things like OC health and safety and compliance. And that compliance data is critical for these businesses to function and to have access to. So
Yeah, and the compliance data, you brought up a very interesting use case where beyond 60 days.
Yeah, and we're seeing more and more. We talk about insurance purposes on why they need to retain data. So we have situations on 5-year plans on insurance purposes of keep an eye on building structures and things that are going on. So as industries change and then require more, we're going to see a focus push towards more and more storage, more and more high quality cameras as we progress. So it's very interesting.
And with that change, I mean, you talk about the longevity of the data. I mean, by this we were talking, so well, you could buy a power scale solution, right? A scale out NAS that is going to deliver the archive, right? But if you've got that for, let's say your retention period is set for 120 days, by example, you've got that, you fill it for 120 days, you've got the changes that we talked about with the cameras out at the edge, but you've also got the advent of the compliance, the ability to go and evidence lock that piece of data for those cameras for that site. And that's going to consume storage. Now you can either elevate that out of the archive storage to another storage resource, potentially the cloud. But additionally, it's not going to escape the fact that you are going to be dealing with change in that archive environment. Now, if we're talking about life cycle, let's say you do get something with a 7-year warranty, right? Let's say you halfway through you've got one of your biggest events, and you've got a bunch of data there that you need to maintain for legal purposes out into the next 7 to 10 years. Now you've got to actually look at the evidence life cycle and how you're actually going to transition that, because even though you're halfway through your warranty period, at some point you're going to have to get off that platform. And that's again why I think that when we talk about our enterprise storage platforms within Dell, and the chief one among them here, for good, mission critical, non-disruptive, 5 nines storage, PowerScale is a very, very good platform for that, because if you get to that point where you're running out of space, you can buy another couple of nodes, put that in, and automatically grow the cluster size out, all without having to take the solution offline. So again, if you're thinking about a mission critical client, and by that you'd be talking about transit, you'd be talking ports, anywhere where there's a security compliance issue, because if they cannot produce the video footage, it's not, it's going to be against either the terms of their license or their regulatory agreement with the government. And what that will mean is that with some systems, you're going to need to take them offline. If I look at an MVR, for example, if with that rework with multiple MVRs, you're then talking about cameras being moved or rebalanced across individual servers. Now that can be quite impactful, because at some point there will be a disconnect reconnect. Now that could only be seconds of video, and that might be all right. But when we're talking about a large centralized solution, and we're talking about the ability to keep that going, adding storage, adding capacity, but also talking about life cycle, because at the end of the life cycle with PowerScale, you add the new nodes, which are compatible with the old nodes, and it will automatically migrate that data.
Yeah, and as you're saying with that, the upgrade path. There are many industries that require 24-hour video surveillance, casinos, healthcare, be what it may be, motorways and all that, and they can't even lose 2 seconds worth of data.
It's not ideal, no. I mean, in some cases it's impactful where if we're talking about tollways and toll roads, right? If the control center for the toll operator, if they lose sight of that video, it potentially means that they might actually need to stop traffic from entering the tunnel because they've got no eyes on what's happening there. It's a safety issue. With an airport, if they haven't got eyes on everything, they've potentially got to get everybody out of the planes, back onto the street, get everything back up and running, and then get them back through that security process. So we are talking about the right solution, to your point, with the right subject matter expertise to get the job within context of the end user. And it's one of these things that we also talk about in Dell, where we're talking about edge computing paradigms. It was part of my team's title. This is a type of edge computing because every customer's edge will be different. Every customer is going to have a different number of cameras, a different type of resolution of cameras, different analytics built into the cameras to that point. So, you know, when we're talking about it, particularly at the compute layer as opposed to the archive and storage layer, it's about making sure that we've got the right compute in the right place at the right time, contextualized against the industry.
I think that's where prime examples, or where we talked earlier about surveillance not being surveillance anymore. You talked about casinos and you mentioned on tunnels and traffic ways, whereby they're not predominantly using these products as surveillance products. They are for data gathering and for operational needs, and that's where the value add comes, and the data becomes far more critical and secure.
Very, very much so. I mean, I think I was saying to Josh, part of that conversation is that, again, we talk about CCTV, closed circuit television. The IP camera it's IP networking, right? When we're talking about a video management system as opposed to CCTV, like Milestone's enterprise-grade video management system, we're talking about video management as a distinct differentiator to closed-circuit television. So, because the way that Milestone can work, and you keep me honest here, Josh, you've got the management system, and you've got the you've got their application stack. But you've also got that tight integration with identity and access management tools like Microsoft Active Directory. So if you're thinking about, and this is a common thing that I've had this from a couple of security managers, right? Which is I get requests from the business all the time that they want access to that camera, that camera, that camera, that camera. I don't know how to give it to them. Well, that's why an enterprise-grade video management system occurs, because through identity access management solutions like Active Directory, you can apply that to a device. You can apply that to an application. You can apply that to a user. So if they wanted to give that camera access to someone, they've got a way to control it, not only to what they can see, but what they can do. I mean, read-only access, for example, you do not want people getting into the system and deleting things, right? But additionally, do they have under law, under privacy governance, do they actually have a reasonable case to be viewing that video? And if they are, and this talks to the heart of video analytics, because quite regularly I get analytic vendors coming forward and saying, okay, all we need is the RTSP feed. I'm like, well, that's great, but you're talking about the concept of taking a video stream directly from the camera to your video analytic. Now, what's controlling that? Who's controlling the video analytic? And Milestone have a great marketplace of partners for the analytics space that actually integrate. They integrate under that paradigm of identity access management as well. So it might be great for a proof of concept to connect to one RTSP feed, but if that proof of concept is ultimately successful, you can't do RTSP feeds across multiple cameras in the network at scale. It's got to be done through an enterprise-grade video management system. It's one of the reasons that we spend a lot of time working with Milestone and other market-leading video management systems to test and validate their platform over the top of our infrastructure. So we do that with our servers, we do that with our storage, we do that not only physically, but we do that virtually as well. One of the things that we're quite proud of is that in 2022, at the International Security Conference in Las Vegas, we were awarded the Best Converged Solution Design for what we call our Dell Validated Design Solution for computer vision. And in that, what we did was we took Milestone, we took BriefCam, and we took Ipsotech, and we virtualized them in a hyper-converged stack. So you've got the flexibility and agility of software-defined or cloud-like principles, but also recording that video and that archive into PowerScale. So the idea being, going back to change, not only have you got software defined from a mission criticality point of view, the ability to move virtual machines or restart virtual machines in a high availability, from a high availability point of view, in support of Milestone's own high availability application stack, but you've also got the ability to spin up new virtualized NVR recorders to actually help with that change. Right?
Yeah, and I think we're starting to paint the picture of a strong value add proposition, and with Dell and Milestone being technology partners, I think that's where you see the value add benefit that brings those products together, along with things like you discuss around warranty statuses, and with 5-year warranties, and you can package that with a Milestone Care package for 5 years, along with a camera manufacturer that represents a 5-year warranty, and all of a sudden we've got a life cycle of product that can transition with each other.
Yes, very, very true.
And the long term, it's not just that now, it's a long-term relationship that Milestone have had with Dell. It's not just something that's popped up overnight. It's been many years that they've worked together closely to develop products that work together and integrate.
That's correct. I mean, we've been testing and validating video management systems over our infrastructure for well over 10 years. I mean, one of the unique differentiators in the way that we test is that we test to fail. Because look, you know, all this camera information, just because you've got a problem, you've got a failed NVR, or you've got a problem in your storage subsystem, every second of every minute of every hour of every day is still going to continue to come into that system. So the camera doesn't stop recording because you've got problems at the infrastructure layer, right? So when we're talking about how we test and validate, we're actually testing on a paradigm that we call test to fail. So when we publish, and we do make, and you know, I've given you the links to
We'll include those.
Yeah. But for Milestone and others, we have tested to fail, and we actually publish the numbers under failure. So if we're really looking at how do we keep that baseline bandwidth recording to storage, that's how we do it. Now it looks a little bit slow on paper, but that's because we understand what's happening with that system.
I think that's a really interesting point, because traditionally when we talk about the security industry, it's been check for footage, the footage doesn't exist, people know the hard drive's failed. And that's where things have changed, and that's where things need to change, and the education process needs to come around and be improved. And I think that's just a great topic of how far the industry's come and how quickly it needs to move towards a far more focused commercial professional solution.
So yeah, Josh, you brought up an interesting point. Like, how many sites do you go to where you still see BNC connected cameras and go, why?
Unfortunately, in this day and age, I still see a lot, which is quite scary. I mean, we look at, say, digital TV has changed over already nearly a decade ago as an example, yet we're still seeing analog cameras in the field. We've had IP cameras since 1998 as an example, very early on. So to see them now in the field being utilised as a primary source of video contents, it's a little bit scary. And we were having a chat before about, you know, what happens when a camera dies or the hard drive dies in a DVR. You don't get any alerts or any functionality out of it. It's only when something happens and you look at it that you know that that's occurred. Whereas in the digital space with VMSs and all the different IP cameras that are available, we're in the IT realm now. We're not in a CCTV realm at all. We're in that digital IT proficiency of system uptimes, hard drive failures, no different to what a data center would collect in the amount of IT information that they need. A VMS now produces the same thing. So you get a lot more information in the digital space versus that analog space when we come to these different projects.
Yeah, and Milestone's at the forefront of all this.
100%, definitely.
We've talked about the relationship between Milestone and Dell, but yeah, Milestone provide more than just, like you're saying, we're no longer just video management system. It's
beyond
that.
Well,
and,
beyond that. Yeah. We talk about, you know, cameras just doing the surveillance portion of everything else, but we now get into the realms of, you've got analytics that can do OH&S requirements. Is someone wearing a high-vis vest on site to then get an alert through the system back to someone that's actually looking at that? So you can utilise less manpower and utilise a system to do more for you, producing those different values that are required.
Yeah, that's why we're talking the AI and the ML side of things, which is...
It's a very important point, and I can't remember the stat, but if you think about what's going on in a security operations control room, or you know, the security office on the premise, you've got a security guard or you've got security operators, and they're very good, professionally trained, they have to be licensed, right? But at the same point, they're still human, right? So it's that point at which how many cameras across multiple screens and multiple tiles can you look at and be expected to see the issue and the incident like that? And that's the power of video analytics. because if it's set correctly, you've got the right camera view, you've got the right aspect, you've got the right product, more importantly, with the right level of secured integration to a video management system platform, you've got that point in time alert and alarm to be able to actually get that information faster.
Yeah,
Right?
and the scaling also comes into it, which we've discussed on multiple fronts. As camera prices come down, you've got the opportunity to add more cameras, have less black spots in your overall feed. And then you've got to have the technology that can handle the increase in cameras, the software that can handle the extra information that's being thrown at it and deal with all that.
Yeah, and we touched on the fact of video analytics. 10 years ago, the video analytics was we were doing high-level interfaces to access control systems whereby you badge and you get a video feed. Now the video feed is doing the access control component of a lot of systems with facial recognition. So the VMS platform and the analytics are actually starting to encroach and overtake the access control market as well.
Very much so. I mean, in the video analytics world, you've got the difference between the inbuilt analytics to the camera. I mean, every camera vendor has, to a point, a level. I mean, motion detection at its very basic is a video analytic, right? But you've got Hanwha, you've got Axis, you've got iPro, all of which are building video analytics into the camera level and providing that metadata meaningfully into the video management system. So I begin seeing Milestone as not only a video management system, but a quasi IoT platform, because you're pulling that metadata in from the camera. You're pulling the camera data in the traditional way, you're compliantly securing it, you're ensuring that there's a custodial chain of management behind that, but you've also got the metadata on the other points as well. So it's very important that not only have you got the right compute, but again, you've got the right storage behind that. But if you then look at, and I mean, Josh, we've had some very interesting conversations over the last 12 months, but I believe there was a sensor vendor that was very popular in schools around vape detection. Yes. Right? That's not a camera. That's actually the ability to put a sensor there, understand that you've got the ability to detect a vape or a vapor, and then actually provide that bit of metadata back into Milestone to pop up with an alert. So, there were very great and wonderful ways that this technology could be put to use. But I think from my point of view, one of the reasons I love working in this industry is the opportunity to provide a safer future for our society, if we do it the right way.
And I think from my side, from the solutions architecting, we've talked about it so much now, there's so many little chunks of information that are required to actually build a cohesive solution. So when somebody comes to us and goes, we need somewhere to store video, the conversation is not initially, here's a solution out of the box. It's always, what cameras are you running? Do you need a GPU to analyze the video? How much storage? How much retention? Are they smart cameras? Is analytics happening on the camera? Is it happening on the server? All this, and that's, I think, the whole solution thing is from your side.
Yeah, and I think the other part of that is too, that we forget about, is that you've got to view all this stuff remotely as well. So it comes down to the client machine, and that's where we really throw a bit of a spanner in the works. How many streams do you want to pull? What resolution do you want to see? What analytics do you want to pull? What do you actually want to see at that client end that's coming from that data center? And then that's a whole nother piece of the puzzle that our resellers need to solve.
Yeah, and it's really good getting the analytics out of Milestone where you've got that bill going, this is how much is required to handle the input that is coming into this. It makes it a lot easier that you've got that integration between Dell and Milestone to go, here is a validated solution.
And you're guaranteed it works at that point too. That's the best part. We've tried and tested on many machines, many terminals, many different solutions, products, different scenarios that we've had. And when we do a server calc as an example, and we are recommending Dell for that product, we know it's going to work out of the box.
Well, I think that's what resellers want, don't they? Yeah. They want the confidence, they want the trust, they want the relationship that they know that they're providing a robust solution that's going to work. And the end customer's the same. When they're making a substantial investment, they want to know what that investment actually delivers.
And they want the reliability. That's probably the number one for enterprise customers, reliability across their fleet of whatever they're doing at that point in time. And that's definitely where Dell and Milestone step in.
Trusted solutions, isn't it?
Trusted, yeah.
I think it reminds me of something that was once said to me about the field of IoT in general, right? A comment from Emerson, just to be clear, but it's a team sport, right? Now, look, Dell, we have a very wide portfolio, so we have more of what is required to support this space. We have our servers, we have our storage, we have our networking switches, we have our workstations, we have our monitors, we have our backup services, we have our cloud-based services, right? But at that point, that's what we bring. We also bring our partnerships and our eco partners, and I'm very, once again, Milestone's a very strong partner for us. But at the same point, we don't do the cameras. We don't do the integration. We don't do all of the other sensors that the client may deploy. And what I like about this conversation, if I'm a security integrator and I'm looking at, okay, where am I going to be able to consolidate my buy, consolidate my spend? I can come to DAS. I can get my cameras. I can get my networking. I can get my compute, my storage. I've got one place where I can come to and get pretty much, in most cases, pretty much the whole solution, if not most of it.
And I think that's where Shane can highlight that one, where we can also highlight new opportunities. Like a vendor might come and say, look, I need some cameras. Then we can bring up that conversation of cameras aren't cameras, and your small opportunity might suddenly become a very large opportunity because people haven't thought beyond just that one line item, that it's actually an integrated solution.
And it's an education process whereby not only are we growing our business, but we're growing our resellers' business with them.
Yeah, and we can go along with the journey and help them, because at the end of the day, if they win, we win.
Exactly.
So yeah, I think that kind of really sums up what we're trying to say from this, is that between all of us, we can provide an end-to-end solution that will cover you for whatever your desired result would be. So instead of coming up initially going, I need some cameras, what is your end result? And then let's have that discussion of how we can achieve that end result for you in the most efficient way.
Yeah, and I think it's something we touched on earlier, whereby distribution especially becomes a point where people think it's a box moving exercise, whereby what we really are is, in this space, we're solution sellers, and we are looking to provide a solution for our customers and their end users.
Okay, yeah, so if you are interested in getting some more information around the solutions that we've discussed, please reach out to either the DAS team or the Data team, and we'll be more than happy to introduce you to our experts who know even more than us about these specific products. Thanks guys, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you, Volis.